This morning, the new leader of the Republican Party of Texas, Abraham George, on the challenges ahead, uniting Republicans, and whether the state party will support House Speaker Dade Phelan. The conservative city council in Amarillo at odds with itself, taking its time on an abortion travel ban. Mayor Cole Stanley explains why. Republicans and Democrats skeptical over President Biden's executive order closing the border to asylum seekers. Why take action now, though? If it is political, is it too late? And Mexico elected a woman president, so what can Texas expect from her?
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, I'm Jason Whiteley. Let's start the program here with the top political headlines happening across our state. Texas is trying to cover its tracks now and prevent people from finding out who you voted for. That's actually possible right now. Republicans in the legislature, made the voting process more transparent over the last few years, but too much information, it appears, has now been made public, and that has made it possible to determine how some people voted. Secretary of State Jay Nelson sent emergency guidance to counties to fix those loopholes after the Texas Tribune and VoteBeat confirmed it was happening. Democrats have long come to Texas to raise money, but rarely reinvest that in this state. A new political action committee, though, wants to set up a longer-term effort to elect Democrats here in Texas. This one's called the Agave Democratic Infrastructure Fund. It's going to train campaign staff and recruit candidates, along with helping Democrats craft their messaging. And doctors are treating Houston Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for pancreatic cancer, and we are watching to see whether that will impact the November election. Jackson Lee said she would occasionally be absent from Congress for treatment, but she made no indication that she would consider stepping down. The veteran lawmaker has not spoken publicly since her announcement last Sunday evening. Let's start this morning with the new face of the Republican Party of Texas. Conservatives elected Abraham George as the new state party chairman, and judging by the brutal Republican primary and runoff, George has his work cut out for him. Mr. George, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's start with a fundamental question here. Texas conservatives are deeply divided. The party needs money. Why in the world do you want this job?
Well, I got to go back and reword your question a little bit. I don't think the conservatives are divided. I think the party have a issue with some of our elected officials, but the conservative, the grassroots, are not necessarily divided. They're united in principles and the party platform.
But isn't there a grassroots and then a more conservative side, what you call the Chamber of Commerce, maybe George W. Bush Republicans that are out there?
Yeah, you're going to have that all the time. Like it's not going to go away. I mean, Democrats have it, we have it, libertarians, I don't know what they have, but the basic of the Republicans, they agree on limited government, they agree on lower taxes, they want free market. So that's going to be the thing that unites everyone. But finances wise, we're actually pretty good. We're talking about it. Matt Rinaldi, our former chairman, left the party with about 2.9, close to $3 million in bank account, which is not a bad start for me. So,
good place to start from. But how do you think you can turn things around and build upon that, though?
Well, I think there is some group of donors who are not happy with the party, the way party is. Sometimes going after elected officials, sometimes not doing certain outreach programs, things like that. So everyone's got a different idea on how the party should be moving. So my goal is to now go to all of them and say, hey, these are some of our principles that's going to unite all of us. And these are some of the things that we're working on, and would love to have you back. So I'm actually working on it. In fact, we got a bunch of donors in Dallas now, so it's going to be an interesting couple of years.
Can you get them back and bridge that divide?
I think so. Many of them reached out to me, and I didn't have to reach out to them. I mean, I haven't gone through the donor list and all of that stuff yet, and many of them texted me, say congratulations. A lot of them know me from as a former chair of Collin County or SREC member, and told me that, hey, would love to work with you. Let's meet, and so I'm actually meeting one today for lunch. Yeah.
After the interview here.
After the interview.
What do you think your biggest challenge is moving forward?
I think we're going to have, there's two things that the party wants to do, really make it happen, right? One is closing the primaries. That's going to be a fight. through legislation and also at the court. So that's going to be a major issue for us. And the second one is the speaker race is coming up, and we want a speaker who is going to put Republicans in committee chairs. We don't want a speaker who will go to the Democrat side. We now have 46 members who agreed, which is more than 50% of Republican caucus, who agreed that they will not support a speaker who is going to put Democrats in charge. So those are going to be some of my challenges as far as the party chair concerned, yeah.
Let's break those apart here. Let's talk about Dade Phelan first. He's running for speaker again. He says he thinks he has the support on that. Will the party support him?
Well, if he does what the party is asking him to do, we have
eliminating Democratic chairs.
Eliminating Democrat chairs is a really good start.
Sure.
He's got two other challengers now. Both have committed that they will do that. They will not put any Democrats in committee chairs. And if they're going to do that, and Dade Phelan comes back and says, "No, I'm going to do this," the party will not be supporting him. But if he can come on board and say, "Yeah, we would love to work together with him."
Do you think Phelan could win?
We don't know. So Phelan now have less support than before, right? 46 members signed a pledge saying that we will not support a speaker, doesn't matter who. So now he doesn't have a choice but to go to the Democrats and say, hey.
And Democrats have always supported him in the past, and,
yes,
and his predecessors as well, though.
Right. So if they go to him and they come to an agreement, he only needs maybe 12 or 13 Republicans on his side, which he may get, which means we are back to the same problem we had last year. Dan Patrick's going to be very upset with him. Greg Abbott's going to be very upset with him, and the party's going to be upset with him. So it could go really good or it could go really bad.
What are you expecting?
I think it will be in the middle somewhere. I don't think it's going to go. I don't think even if he wins, I don't think he's going to go double down on everything. I think he may come to us and say, I may win as a nominee from the Democrat side, but I don't think I'm going to put a Democrat committee chair. So we're working with him and working with his allies in the Texas House to see what we can do.
Mr. George, good luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable now to discuss the politics of this. Ian Mitra is with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Ian, you just heard the new chairman there. Where is this party heading, do you think?
Well, the good thing for the party right now is that they can focus on looking at November and making Democrats the primary target. The party chair kind of mentioned some of the things that are kind of dividing the party right now, and it's going to be a very tough legislative session and a lot to resolve there. And you still have people getting over the feelings of, elected officials kind of endorsing opponents of other elected officials. So that's something to resolve. But for now, you could probably see some of them trying to kind of coalesce around, focusing on Democratic opposition.
And Bud, come January, will the other Republicans, will Dade Phelan and his supporters get over that, or will the bandage be ripped off again?
Oh, I think it's a disaster right now. I mean, the role of the party chair is to organize the volunteers, get the foot troops out, and raise money for the party, and not to boss the officials. It's to raise money to re-elect the officials they have. Somehow there are 4 million Republican voters in Texas. There's a handful of people, tiny pocket of people, who are hobbyists, who really, a lot of them retired, who go to these party meetings, and now they think they want to tell the party elected officials what to do. And the officials are going to make sure they don't have any money and as little power as possible.
And Bernadine, Abraham George seemed to balk at the first question there when I asked him how he's going to unite the party. He said, the grassroots are united. It's just some of the elected officials who have strayed from the farm.
And how can you have a united party when your grassroots are not in agreement with the elected officials? And it appears as if he's going to have a difficult time because he's interested apparently only in satisfying grassroots and not necessarily satisfying the entire party, which is his responsibility, is to bring the party together so that they can win elections. And it just doesn't appear, as according to what he just said, if that's an interest, he's only interested in getting what the grassroots or the diehard Republicans want to do and ignore the rest.
Yeah. But it didn't seem like that was far off.
Well, it just seems like that they're headed to this brink. You know, their platform has all these rules about they're not going to let Democrats vote, which they've been trying to do that, but the Democrat voting in the primary has dwindled over the years anyway. They want a majority of counties to approve things.
Like the Electoral College.
They claim it's like the Electoral College, but the Electoral College reflects the federation of states. Texas is not a federation of counties. It's foolish.
A lot to watch for in November and come January when the legislature returns. A lot more ahead on this program here, including this.
When we come back here, pro-life and Second Amendment supporters at odds over an issue in Amarillo. Mayor Cole Stanley joins us from the Panhandle. And President Biden's border order. Congressman Tony Gonzalez represents more of the border than any other lawmaker, and he is with us when Inside Texas Politics returns.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. President Biden taking action on the border this past week, issuing an executive order that would shut down the border to asylum seekers if more than 2,500 came across in a single day. Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez just won a tight runoff race to keep his seat there, which stretches from San Antonio all the way to Big Bend. Congressman Gonzalez, welcome back to the program here. Congratulations on re-election. Let me ask you the first question about that. Why was it so close, do you think? Because it was just a razor-thin lead that you had at the end.
Yeah, Jason, thanks for having me. It was so close because I happen to represent the toughest district in America. Texas 23 is absolutely brutal. It's larger than 30 states. It's 2 time zones. I really represent 4 different types of people. And I'd also say too, I'm a little early in politics. I'm not very good at the polished BS yet, and I hope I never get that way. So I got to do a little more listening to folks, but we work very, very hard.
Let me ask you about the border, because that's all the news right now. President Biden this week issuing that executive order that would limit the number, or stop the number of asylum seekers, stop all asylum seekers from coming across if the number of immigrants exceeded 2,500 on any given day. Republicans pushing back against that. Some Democrats are as well. Why isn't that a good idea, at least to start?
Jason, I wish I could believe in the tooth fairy, but I don't anymore. And what I'm seeing is I no longer believe in what Joe Biden says or does. I just don't. And I don't think a lot of Americans do. And so in one end, you could say is $1 short, a day late. On the other end, I just don't believe what they're going to do. And I think back to some points in which they eroded my trust. When Remain in Mexico, when they lost that in the courts and they had to re-implement Remain in Mexico, they did. But they did that by sending 5 people back to Mexico. I mean, just dozens, handful of people when there were literally tens of thousands of people coming over. So it's really, the devil's always in the details, and you can say you're doing something, but the facts are the border continues to get worse.
Indeed so. Congressman, thanks for the time. Always good to see you.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Now to an interesting story in Amarillo that has pro-life and Second Amendment supporters divided. Citizens petitioned Amarillo to make it illegal for someone to drive a woman through the city to get an abortion elsewhere. But the conservative city council is taking its time to talk through this one. Mayor Cole Stanley joined us from Amarillo to explain why. Mayor, welcome to the program here. Other conservative-led cities have passed these ordinances. Why didn't Amarillo immediately do that?
Hey, good morning, Jason. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this a little bit. Hopefully bring a little bit more context to it. So this is something that we've been working on here in Amarillo for at least 3 years. I sit on a very pro-life council, and then you guys have got to watch us continue to take our time and really go through the entirety of the civic process, making sure that both sides are heard, every point is made. And then we still have the issue here of making sure that what we put forward is legal. And so I think that's what you guys are seeing. And so we've walked this guy the long way around, but we think we're real close to the finish line.
Let me ask you about the makeup of city council. You said it was small government plus pro-life. With something like this, I can imagine it's probably 2 sides are pulling apart. Am I reading that right?
Yes, sir. And Jason, the most interesting thing here, I think, is that I've taken way more friendly arrows from my own right side constituency that feel like I'm not pro-life enough. Maybe you're not who you said you were, or if you're not in favor of all of this the way that we dictate it, then obviously you're with them. And so I've been impressed by the other side, the left. And, we kind of thought, well, these guys may be a little crazy. They may come at us hard, and they may not be respectful, and may not want to truly discuss. And locally here in Amarillo, I've been super proud of all of my citizens on both sides. But yeah, you've got yourself divided against yourself on one side, where you have some very solid pro-life agencies, entities, individuals that dispute and disagree over the core of this, of why do we want to put something in there that doesn't honor the right role of government? It's not enforceable. And then this is a very slippery slope. So the same individuals that are my Second Amendment rights advocates are the ones that are looking at this. And so there's not much difference in me saying, hey, you can't transport a firearm versus me saying you can't transport an individual. And so when you balance this and you really try to be forth-looking and use some wisdom, there's some issues here that I don't feel like this council would approve. And I'm not sure that the sentiment of my constituents is going to be much different.
You made a good point, too, about the Second Amendment supporters who might be concerned that, if you can be stopped and get in trouble for transporting somebody across through the county or across the state lines or through the city, then the same thing could happen with someone with a firearm in their car. Which side are they lining up on, the 2A folks?
So I'd say about half and half. Because of how polarizing this issue is, it's almost become the issue of, well, we have to do something. It may not be 100% right. It may not be, the most thought out or the safest path forward, but we've got to do something. And so I don't agree with that. I think you've got to do the right thing. You don't have to do something. And I have to live with this. And so I'm going to have to sign that and put my name on it. And then I'm the guy getting sued when we're getting drug into court, on something that other side is going to say, Mayor, you can't enforce this anyway. The loss of life has already happened. You're dragging somebody back here, and you're violating an interpretation of their civil liberty to move about, and you're outside of your jurisdictional boundaries with this. And so when you compile all that, what is my outcome? It's a civil private right of action that happens after the loss of that life, and it gains you nothing, and it could potentially cost you everything. And so this has been my message as I'm talking to my petition committee and asking them, take the 80% here and don't worry about the 20% that's not going to be valid.
Mayor, thanks for the time on this. Good luck to you guys figuring it out.
Hey, greatly appreciate you guys and your time. You guys have a great week.
The Roundtable is ready when we come back here on Inside Texas Politics. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ian is back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, let's start with you about President Biden's executive order on the border. Republicans and Democrats seem to have a problem with this. Why do this now?
Well, and I think the only reason to do this now is that the election is a few months away and Joe Biden is still a point or two behind. And further than that, in some of the swing states, he wants to show that he's trying to do something about immigration. Jason, we've gone on 20 years now with immigration just being this political football that's batted back and forth. For Republicans, we heard Dan Patrick say on the radio here, the reason to stop immigration is because if immigration continues, Republicans will never win again. The Democrats think if immigration continues, they have a chance to win. It's all about politics.
Well, if it's all about politics, Ian, is it too late since we're, 5 months out from the election?
Well, we kind of have to see what kind of happens with this plan that Biden's put through, and if it actually has any type of effect. As Bud said, Biden's behind in the polls, especially on this issue, where lots of folks polled are saying that Trump is apparently more effective in this, and so he's trying to do that. But the challenge for Biden too is that he could be splitting his own party and his own support within Democrats with this next step too. So that's something he has to be mindful of as well.
Bernadine, any surprise about the pushback from Republicans considering how tight this race is that Bud was talking about?
Absolutely not, because keep in mind, when the Senate came up with the compromised way to solve the issues at the border, the Republicans voted it down. So they apparently do not want to solve the issue before the election in November. This is all about politics. It's all about winning that narrative, which is that the Republicans are best to handle immigration issue. So no, it's not a surprise, and it's going to continue because this is the Republicans' issue going into November.
At some point, though, Bud, let me ask the last question about this. At some point, though, won't Biden have something to talk about, saying, hey, I helped negotiate this bipartisan border deal that the Republican Congress turned down. I enacted this executive order that's getting, criticism for. He can still say he's trying to do something, right?
Well, the big thing that he'll have pictures of Border Patrol agents turning people around and sending them back. He'll be able to say that he's sending people back and not accepting people, even though he's accepting thousands a day.
Let's cross the border here and talk about Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, the first Latina ever elected to that position. What should Texas expect from her, do you think?
What Texas is hoping is to kind of continue to build on the trade relationship. We're talking about $285 billion in Texas-Mexico trade. And obviously, that's huge, not just across the border, but across the state. And so, leaders here will be continuing to hopefully build on some of those trade agreements, maybe expand some, and hopefully for them, kind of see more opportunities arise, but also addressing issues regarding migration, addressing smuggling, trafficking. Those are things that, they'll continue to address, but, trying to focus on trade and building that relationship.
Bernadine?
Well, I think that we should expect for everything to continue because she's campaigned on continuing what her predecessor did, which is had a very good relationship with the state of Texas. But she has a lot of challenges going on in her in Mexico, and that's the bottom line of the crime.
And Bud, final word, can it remain business as usual, though, with all the issues that we're talking about?
Well, it can, but she's very tied to California. She went to graduate school in Berkeley. Her politics are more like California's. Still remains to be seen how well she'll get along with Texas.
A lot ahead with her six-year term for Mexican presidents. Guys, thanks so much. We appreciate that. Always appreciate you watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Hope you can join us then. Take care.